Hi friends, Nathan Pierce here with Family Protection Ministries. Happy Friday to you. We are looking at the beginning of legislative session starting in just under 2 months. But at the same time, we are hearing still announcements of new special sessions that are starting. So we just had the end of a special session in the California State Assembly this week, a couple of days ago on Tuesday, and an announcement at the same time of the next special session that is being called to address the issues of gas prices. I don't know if they will be discussing anything else during this special session, but it's starting next week. So the week just coming up, we're going to be seeing more legislation be going through committees, getting voted on, getting passed, perhaps signed into law by the governor. So we're going to be just keeping track of those things, seeing what's going on. This is not something that happens every year. This is a unique situation, and we need to be vigilant to see what's going on and keep our eyes peeled for anything that could impact the family. And certainly the threats to the family have been ever increasing, and we're going to get into some of that history today. And we'll be looking at a little bit of an overview of some threats that are on the horizon for us here in California and across the nation. So join me in praying for our state, our nation, as we prepare for the next legislative session, but even before that, for the election that's coming up on November 5th. So with that, let's get into it. Welcome to the Front Line with FPM, where we talk about California politics, homeschool freedom, parental rights, and the family. I'm your host, Nathan Pierce, and thanks for joining us today. Let's jump right in and see what's going on here on the Front Line. So you'll remember, perhaps, back in 2013, there was a reporter she was a news anchor, and she said on national news that, let me just read the quote. Here's what she said about education, children, and families. Melissa Harris Perry. We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we have this private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments. That's what Melissa Harris Perry said. And this mindset is very typical of a leftist or left-leaning view of education in America today, and very much so in California. And it's something that is a mindset that completely undermines the God-given jurisdictions of family, state, church that we see in Scripture. It goes completely against the principle of parents raising children and being responsible for them. It's a complete attack on the principles of Scripture, such as the Deuteronomy mandate, where it says specifically that parents are to teach their children and to do this when they're walking by the way, when they rise up, when they lie down. No matter what they're doing, parents are supposed to be teaching to their children the things that they were instructed to teach them, that being first to love the Lord their God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then to love their neighbor as their self. These are principles that throughout Scripture have been instructed to parents to teach their children. Parents teach their children. And not that parents own children like they own a car. That's not what we're talking about. That's not the biblical perspective on children. It's children are are given to parents for parents to be stewards of them, for parents to be responsible for, and to care for them as they grow and as they learn and as they become able to discern for themselves and provide for themselves. And so it's not so much a issue of parents owning children. That's not the mindset. You might hear people claim that that's our mindset, but that's not the idea here. The idea is that parents are responsible for their children and that they are stewards of them. God has entrusted children to parents and to families in the family structure that God created back in Genesis as a means for children to grow up and to be part of society in the context of that family. And so parents are stewards of the children. They're not owners of children. So, and there's never any indication that government is, that civil government is either owners or stewards of children. That's a completely humanistic perspective on children and family. It is a very anti-biblical and anti-family concept. So we need to remember that. But I go back in time to 2013 to sort of start building this history of the attack on the family. And that's what I want to talk about more today in this podcast, is to give you sort of a sense of where our state and our nation are going on this issue of the family and parents' responsibility for their children. We're going to look at a few clips today and listen to a few clips of some of the direction and some of the pressures in our society today towards taking that concept of family and parents being responsible for children and completely throwing it out the window, replacing it with society having a more significant role, or completely taking over the role of family, and just sort of diluting the concept of family to the point where family is a bad thing that we throw out and we replace it with other things. And so let's go on this path together. We're going to look at a few clips here, and we're going to talk about some of the new proposals that are coming out in recent weeks as we look into the near future, next year, the next couple of years. All right, so let's take a look at these. In July of 2021, we have this choir. It is the Gay Chorus of San Francisco, men's choir, singing about our children, your children, and how what their agenda is for the children in California, specifically in California, but across the country as well. And this is pretty creepy. So this is not a joke. This is a real thing. So listen to this song. We'll play a short clip, not the whole thing.
You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco, warn about San Francisco, make him wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair.
And if that wasn't bad enough, oh my goodness. Another portion of the song here. Let me give you this other clip and listen to this and consider that these folks are out there. These people are out there, and they have definite views and they about the family, and they have a voice in the legislatures across the nation, particularly here in the state of California, where these folks are from.
We're coming for them. We're
Next, we have a clip of President Biden talking about children. Specifically, he's talking to teachers. He's addressing a group of Teachers of the Year, and this is back in April 27th of 2022. President Biden's talking to them about how they should think of children. And notice what he says toward the end of this short clip. He says something about the teachers. When the kids are in their classroom, teachers should think of them as their own children. Listen to that.
You've heard me say it many times about our children, but it's true. They're all our children. And the reason you're the Teachers of the Year is because you recognize that. They're not somebody else's children. They're like yours when they're in the classroom.
My goodness. And then here we have actor Rob Schneider talking with Megyn Kelly, the news person that has the Megyn Kelly show, and we have Rob Schneider talking about why he moved out of California and how it has to do with what's going on in the public schools with children.
Well, wait, are these still your people? Are you still in California?
No, I had to move out of California because I got little kids. And
we understand why.
It's dangerous that, in California, take your kids, in public schools. In the morning you drop off a girl, in the afternoon you pick up a boy. You never know what you're going to get.
So with all of that said, all of that background there, I wanted to sort of remind you of some of the things that are leading up to this point in time. And I want to share with you some of the concerns that I have about proposed legislation over for this next year. I expect to see some legislation presented at least in one or more states across the country about homeschooling this year, and that is based on a proposal for specific homeschool legislation that's been prepared and is out there. It's available for people to use and to craft for their own states. And there's a number of people out there that are pursuing further homeschool regulation. Specifically, they're arguing for it from the perspective of making it safe. In fact, the name of the legislation is the Make Homeschool Safe Act. So I just want to go through briefly and explain a really summary version of what this would mean. They're starting out with concerns about parents using homeschooling to hide abuse, parents using homeschooling to really shield their children from the rest of the world and keeping them isolated, because that's what's happening in the homeschool community, is that they're claiming that homeschooling is really something that's used by parents to essentially keep hidden abuse and brainwashing. And there's a concern, a stated concern, that legislatures should specifically ensure homeschooled children are safe and receive a sufficient education. And they're arguing that this is not happening and it's not possible, and that's why it's necessary for new legislation to be introduced, the Homeschool Safe Act, Make Homeschool Safe Act, so that homeschooling can function in a way that actually protects children and provides them an adequate education, because of course that's not happening right now, and we need to make sure that it is happening if we are going to allow homeschooling to take place. So there are many requirements. In fact, the basic requirement is that parents would have to get permission from the state to homeschool. And so this puts the state in the driver's seat of deciding, okay, is this parent qualified to homeschool? And there are a number of factors taken into consideration in this proposed legislation. Education level is one of them, which we know from studies that has nothing to do with with the ability of parents to provide an adequate education for their children. Studies have shown that there is no comparison between the education quality of homeschool students and the education level of their parents. And then there's other requirements. If a parent doesn't meet certain categories, then they either can't homeschool their children, or they would have to follow certain further restrictions, putting them under the authority of different people in the government to be allowed to homeschool. And so this is some really dangerous new restrictions, some new proposals to really limit who could homeschool and how much flexibility they would have in taking care of their own children in their own homes. So it's a really dangerous direction for our country to be going in general. I mean, even outside of the concept of homeschooling, we don't want to see government expanded so far as to have specific controls over what's going on in individual people's houses outside of what we normally would consider to be crime. So currently, under the law in California and across the nation, there are penalties for people that commit crimes against other people. If somebody is if somebody shoots someone else and they're injured or killed, then that person gets prosecuted. And they go through various legal procedures, and they're likely to end up in jail or prison. Well, there's various levels of criminal activity that gets dealt with through various laws and various penalties. That's already something that's dealt with in our laws today. And so for somebody to come up with this new category of laws for a specific group of people that believe a certain way or make certain decisions with their life, that they're going to be handled differently than everyone else, to predetermine that they're going to be penalized for basically believing what they believe and not allowed to live the way they want to live, because you're presupposing that they're going to commit crimes against people in their homes. Somebody thinks that homeschoolers are going to be more likely to commit crimes against others. So we need to actually control homeschoolers in a more rigorous way and presuppose that they're going to commit crimes at a higher rate than anyone else. So we need to treat those homeschool people differently. That's where this is coming from. And so it's really a direction of somebody saying, I disagree with this other person, so I think they should be penalized for who they are and what they believe. Sounds pretty ironic, doesn't it? But that's the case. That's the situation we're dealing with. This has not been introduced in an actual bill yet here in California. But my belief is that it's just a matter of time before we see it here and in a number of other states. So be praying for us as we prepare for the beginning of the legislative session. Again, we have a special session next week to deal with some economic issues, some gas price issues. I don't expect education to come up next week, but be praying for us that we are alert and aware of everything that does happen. Be praying for the election that happens November 5th, and be praying that we would be ready for when the legislature comes back for their next full-blown session. It's a 2-year session that starts in December. That's just less than 2 months away. So be praying for us. I appreciate that. We're praying for you and for the health of the homeschool community throughout the state of California, that we can be strong and courageous, that we can be standing up for our freedoms, that we can be encouraging one another to do what's right and good, to be building stronger families and healthy homes, and that we would be able to continue on the level of freedoms that we have been able to enjoy for the next generations. So thanks for listening. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Front Line with FPM. For more information about the topics we discuss here, check out Family Protection Ministries at fpmca.org and subscribe to our channel.